Yeah.
Will you just kind of hold this? Because we're live streaming. So you just want to hold it while I introduce, and then I'll come back.
Yeah. Okay, where do you want me to be up close?
Just right here.
Yeah.
Or someone that's like your best friend. And you got it.
We gotta get started. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Come on, Faith.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Live stream Surface Pro.
Okay, now we'll get started. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming out. I know this is going to be kind of a tough subject to listen to. I'm sure your administrators have informed you that what we'll be talking about is kind of sensitive in nature. The majority of what we're going to be talking about is suicide. A lot of us have experienced suicide either firsthand or residually through a family member. So we have two speakers here available that we brought in that I think are going to be great for you guys to listen to and just kind of get accustomed to what we're going to be talking about today and tomorrow. September starts National Suicide Awareness Month, and so for us to really kick it off, we decided to bring in two world-renowned speakers, Kevin Hines and Joe Williams. I will introduce Joe Williams first. Joe is a proud First Nations Aboriginal Australian man who is a former National Rugby League player. In addition to his rugby accolades, he is also a two-time World Junior Welterweight Boxing Champion. After a suicide attempt in 2012, Joe now focuses on inspiring youth and individuals through motivational speaking, workshops, and through his charity, which is called The Enemy Within. So let's take a moment and help get Joe up here on the stage.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I can't be the father that I promised you all to be. I'm sorry that I'll never get to see you walk down the aisle. I'm sorry that I'll never get to see you graduate. But if you ever need me, just look up. Sorry that they were the words in my suicide note in 2012 to my kids. For me, I've been struggling with mental illness my entire life, but I had to hide it because of the stigma that surrounds mental health. Stigma that nobody wants to talk about it, and at times nobody wants to hear about it. And a lot of the time, the wrong messages that people do read and hear about mental health. For me, previous to my suicide attempt, I was in the National Rugby League competition for 10 years. Now, the National Rugby League back home in Australia, you can pick that I was from Australia, right? With my accent, sort of don't sound American. The National Rugby League competition back home in Australia is like the equivalent to the NFL. So little old me, I played in the NRL system for about 10 years. All the while struggling with suicidal thoughts, suicidal voices inside my head telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve to be here anymore. I'll track back and I'll start my story right from the beginning. I was born into a fantastic supportive family of two wonderful parents. And as I mentioned, I'm a First Nations man, a Wiradjuri man, from New South Wales in Australia, which is west of Sydney. Now, all my entire life, I just wanted to be a rugby league player. It's like anyone out here who grows up as a kid playing football and wants to play in the NFL. I was like that. I used to watch my heroes on TV and emulate what they were doing and try to be like how they were and commentate my own moves out in the backyard against my older brother, all with the dreams of playing in the NRL. I signed my first contract. So we don't have a draft system in the NRL in Australia. We have a contracted system where the clubs just go out and then they bid for you and you sign a contract with whatever club you think's the best club to go to. So I had about 7 or 8 clubs trying to sign me at one time. And I signed my first contract to play in the NRL at the age of 13. At the age of 13, how old are you guys? 13, 14, right? 17? Not you then. 13 and 14-year-olds. So your guys' age, I'd signed a contract to play in a National Rugby League competition. That doesn't mean that I went down and played when I was 13. I stayed back home in the country and I went through school and did all the right things that I was supposed to do, trained hard and ate the right foods and went to school and got the best possible education that I could get because I knew that was a way to having a good future. Now, from the age of 13 and 14, I started to notice there were some negative type voices going around in my head. Now, these negative voices would question everything I did. They'd tell me I wasn't quite good enough, and when I made a decision and I actually did it and I went well, they'd tell me, no, you're not really good enough to do that. You don't deserve to win those trophies or those awards. And I started to get more and more over the course of my lifetime, and I got to the age of 16 and 17 where I started to do some silly things as young teenagers do. By going out and hanging around the wrong crowds and getting up to mischief with my friends. I was lucky enough that my dad pulled me in the line and he said, you've got a decision right now whether you want to be a rugby league player or whether you want to go down the path of destruction. I listened to my dad, and in that conversation I made the decision that I wanted to do absolutely everything that I possibly could to be an NRL player. So I kept on that path. Training hard, doing everything I could, staying in school and listening to my teachers, listening to my parents, eating healthy and doing all the right things. And I moved to Sydney. Now I mentioned I grew up out in the country, and then I moved to Sydney because that's where the NRL competition was. And when I got to Sydney, I started playing and I started to get homesick to go back home to the bush. But that was combined with the voices coming into my head saying I didn't deserve to be there. The voices that kept going round and round all throughout my rugby league career. It told me I wasn't quite good enough. Now, it was during those times the only way that I could combat those voices and those noises. I started to drink copious amounts of alcohol. There was times where I drank lots of alcohol and I started to take drugs because that was the only thing that would stop the noises inside my head. And I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do because I was so preparing my body to live a healthy lifestyle to play on the big stage. But I couldn't quite help it because that's all I knew, that the only way to cope with these noises inside my head that was so overpowering. And I got through a stage, I started playing, like the NFL on TV every week, and you're on posters and you're signing autographs and things like that. So I was doing that. I was living my dream. And things started to get too much for me. Things started to overpower, and I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't chasing that dream. All I was concentrating on was making those voices and those noises go away. So in drinking loads of alcohol and taking too many drugs, I had to make a decision that, one, I'm going to end up in prison, or two, I'm going to end up in jail. Now for me, I was lucky that I come to that decision that in December this year, it's been 11 years where I've been completely clean and free from any sort of alcohol and drugs. Because I knew that was the best part of me. That was the best part of my life. Because I was going to end up in a really bad place and I didn't want to be in that place. Because I wanted to be a role model for my kids. So when I took away those substances, what had happened was putting those substances into my body had turned the noise down. But taking them away had turned the noise back up. So things got really, really out of control inside my own head. I started to believe the voices. So I quit and retired from rugby league. And I walked inside of a boxing gym. Now, playing 10 years in the NRL, being a professional sports person for a long time, a lot of people say that's a fantastic achievement. You've been a professional sports person for 10 years, well done. Now, in walking into that boxing gym, I didn't want to be the world's best boxer. Because when I started training, when I started hitting those bags, and I started working out, I started to realise that my boxing was like my mental health struggle. When you start to get tired in your boxing, you start to question yourself. Give up. This is too hard. You don't want to be here. So I had to fight with everything within my body for that. To make those voices go away that were questioning me how hard it was. Now I liken that to my mental health struggle on the outside because I had voices saying to me that I wasn't good enough. I didn't quite deserve to be here. And now that I was a little bit older from the earlier days, those voices were starting to tell me that I didn't deserve to be here and I should just have a suicide attempt. I had kids at this time. So my life seemed to be going fantastic. I was great. I was putting on the brave face for everybody and not telling anyone about the troubles that I was going through. But behind closed doors, I was really struggling. Behind the closed doors, I was battling with what people call a mental illness. I was a fully functional professional athlete, but I was struggling with a mental illness. Now I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so that mental illness isn't just a thought that you can make it go away. I had to put some structures in my life to make sure that I could live a happy, healthy life. So walking into that boxing gym, the more I trained, the harder I worked, the stronger I started to become in the mind. The stronger I started to become, I started to be able to fight these voices and those urges to want to end my life. I started to be able to fight them every single day. Until I started neglecting things that I was going through that were making me feel good. The things that were making me feel good were eating healthy, training, talking to people about my mental illness, having a good support network around me that didn't judge me. I went through a marriage breakdown and separation, so I was separated from my kids. I had 3 kids that mean the absolute world to me. But I wasn't living with those kids anymore. So now I had this voice inside my head telling me that my kids don't love me. That I was a burden to everyone else. I just can't. So in 2012, I wrote letters to my kids that I spoke about earlier. And writing letters to those kids, I promised them that I'd always be around, but I'd only be in spirit. Because as a First Nations person, we believe so much in the spirit of the afterlife of the spirit that continues on. And I knew that I'll always be with my kids, it just I couldn't physically be there with them. Now it was in that message, that letter that I wrote to my kids, I sat down on the edge of the bed, I put that note on the side, and I did what I had to do, which what I thought was my last night on earth. I had a drug overdose and decided that I couldn't be here anymore. As I drifted off, I closed my eyes, I was happy. Because all the voices inside my head were telling me that I was a burden to everyone else, that I didn't deserve to be here. So I was happy that my kids could be without that burden. Now in waking up the following day, I realised something. I realised that I tried to end my life with everything that I possibly could in my being. I did absolutely everything I possibly could to not be here anymore. But there was something bigger and stronger than me that kept me here. Now in receiving help, I decided that this was too big for me to do on my own anymore. So I was taken to the hospital. And at the hospital, the doctor said to me, what you took and how much you took. We're very lucky to be alive. So I was very lucky to be alive. And hearing those words from that doctor, I said to myself, I've got a second chance. I've got a second chance at life, and I'm going to do absolutely everything I possibly can within my body to make sure that I can make a positive impact on somebody's life every single day. So every day I started to get up and I started to help other people by volunteering, by training different people. Because I was a boxer, I started to train different people. Now, after that suicide attempt and I come out of the hospital, I started to get back into my boxing, and I trained as hard as I possibly could, won a few fights, and then I won 2 WBF world titles. Now, going from the top as a professional sports person to the bottom as a suicide attempt, back to the top, I've learned how to fight. I haven't learned how to fight as in the boxing ring. I've learned how to fight what's going on within my head. And I regularly check in with doctors, and I've got what I call a wellness plan, that every single day I wake up and I tick that wellness plan off about my medication, about staying well and staying healthy. I work out, because working out and living a healthy lifestyle makes us feel so much better. Living with our friends and our family and having positive interactions every single day makes our well-being so much better. And people say to me, I'm lucky, right? I get to travel right around the world and talk about my story and help save people that are having suicidal thoughts and who are struggling with mental illness. I'm lucky because once upon a time, I took everything within me to not be here anymore. So every day I get to walk around, this is my second chance. Every single day I get to interact with people and meet people and have a positive impact on their life. Because once upon a time it wasn't so much like that. Now I know that every single day that I step foot on this earth, I'm going to keep that promise. I'm going to keep making a positive impact on people right around the world. People say to me, you're a suicide prevention expert. And I say, no, I'm not a suicide prevention expert. You are. And they say, what do you mean? I don't know anything about suicide prevention. So you might not know, but the one thing that we can all do is have positive interaction with each other. Because suicide prevention and mental health awareness starts around the kitchen table. It starts in our schools. It It starts on the bus on the way to school, it starts on the bus on the way home. When you're not feeling well, talk up. And let your friends know that you're not feeling well. And friends, if you have that conversation, don't take it, oh, she'll be okay, or he'll be all right. Go and talk to your teachers. Because somebody like me wouldn't be here if I don't keep people around me that I can turn and talk to. Every day I've got an attack on my brain of this thing what I call mental illness that doesn't want me to be here at all. You know, I want to be here. My 4 kids want me here. My fiance wants me here. Kevin wants me here. Hopefully you guys want me here now. Guys, I'm truly blessed to be able to come out and share my story with people who have their future in front of them. You know, I've been a professional athlete for 15 years. I've lived a fantastic life. But I honestly believe that the next 15 is going to be the biggest thing in my life, not the sport. Because I get to help people, I get to talk to people, I get to meet new people and help save lives. So guys, thank you very much for being so quiet and listening to me. I don't know if you were just bored and you were tired and heads were going like this, but you couldn't quite understand me because of my accent. Not really sure. But I'll tell you one thing, it's you guys that have the accents, not me. In Australia, they say, oh, do you hear the accent? Yeah, I hear the accent, but they think I've got the accent. It's weird, I'm American. Guys, thank you very much for having me here today. Like I said, I've lived a fantastic life, and I'm truly grateful to be able to stand here and talk to you guys. And I'm going to bring up Kevin Hines now. Kevin and I met about 8 months ago when we were filming a documentary called Suicide: The Ripple Effect. Kevin started to hear about a lot of the wonderful work that I do with suicide prevention back home in Australia through a friend of ours, and he came out and we struck up a conversation, and a lot of the things that Kevin goes through, I go through. A lot of the things that I go through, Kevin goes through. So we're like that, 2 brothers that be able to bounce things off each other when we're having hard times, and we help each other out because we know that we need support. We can't go through this on our own because it's too strong for us, and the best thing is for us to get through it is to support each other. So thank you very much, guys, for being a wonderful, quiet little audience this afternoon. And I'll call on Kevin Hines.
Thank you, Jim. How many of you in this room think that your life could dramatically change within 4 seconds? Anybody? Raise your hand. How many people think that your life could dramatically or drastically change within a matter of 4 seconds? Not everyone. Okay. All right. Fair enough. In the year 2000, at the age of 19, after battling my bipolar disorder for 2.5 years since I was a junior in high school, on September 25th of the year 2000, in a matter of 4 seconds, I fell from the top of the Golden Gate Bridge to the waters below. I had just attempted to take my life. By all accounts, I was still a kid. We have to talk about what brought me there. Where did this come from? Why would a young man with every bit of future ahead of him, a beautiful family who loved him, take that terrible leap? And to answer that question, I have to go back to the very beginning. Very beginning. The day I was born. I was born on August 30th, 1981, in the great city of San Francisco, in the beautiful state of California. I was born to one Marcia Silvera and one Martino Fernandez. Martino's family, half Mexican, half Italian. If I told you the ethnic makeup of my birth mom, Marcia, you'd be here all day. So you can call me a mutt. And you see, Marcia and Martino, my biological mom and dad, as I'm adopted, they had a couple of great things going for them. They had their immeasurable love for one another, and they had that same love for their 2 infant baby boys. Then myself, birth named Giovanni Gabriel Prasad Perales, 10 times? 1 time? 2 times? No times. Never mind. Never mind. Before my name was changed, as I was adopted to John Kevin Hines. And my brother Jordash. They say that Jordash and I looked exactly alike, except for the color of our hair. His hair was blonde and curly, and as you can tell, mine is long, wavy, and auburn. Used to be. This is not on purpose, okay? Right, it's not on purpose. I have to do this. Anyway. Marcia and Martino, they loved each other and they loved us. But how could 2 parents take care of their 2 sons if they're having a very terrible time taking care of themselves? You see, Marcia and Martino had both been diagnosed in their day with what was then called manic depression, what we today call bipolar disorder. Extreme highs and lows, manic episodes of grandiose delusion where you believe you can do anything and be anyone, followed by depressive lows, because when you go up, you guys, what happens? When you go up, you must come down. I would come crashing into these dark, dismal depressions that I felt I couldn't dig myself out of with a backhoe. Marcia and Martino had that same pain to deal with, that brain pain. Because what is the common denominator with people with these things called mental illnesses? It's the brain, the single most powerful organ in all of your bodies, and the largest, if you didn't know. The brain, which is mostly on automatic mode. Did you know that? It's 88% on automatic mode. Meaning that when you woke up this morning, and you brushed your teeth, and you combed your hair or brushed your hair, and you ate breakfast, and you exercised, and you took a shower, you didn't tell yourself to do that today. That was ingrained in you the moment it became habit, and your brain remembered it and follows through. So, Marcia and Martino, their brains were having a hard time. And they would cope with their brain disease by using hardcore recreational drugs and alcohol. They would leave my brother and I barely clothed, not fed, unattended in seedy motels in San Francisco, the kind of places that are terrifying for anybody. The kind of places with concrete slab floors, and if you didn't pay by the hour, you were out on the street. They would leave us there to go get those drugs because that's what they needed because of their substance use disorder. And one day, according to one motel clerk, they left us one too many times. And that motel clerk, for the first time in his life, made his most unseedy decision. He called the police. It was probably the first best day of our lives. For once, we went from being neglected every day and unfed, being swooped up by Child Protective Services and taken into the foster care system. A system that in the 1980s was in shambles. A system that would allow kids to age out into 18 into homelessness, other kids to be abused by this or that foster parent. A system that sadly, for all the good it does today, still does both of those things. We were taken in, we were placed into foster care, and my only full-blooded brother and I, Jordash and I, were supposed to be adopted together. That was the plan. Except we both got a vicious strain of bronchitis. And my only full-blooded brother died. People have said to me over time, Kevin, why did that matter to you? You were an infant. It's irrelevant. How did it affect you? If you're unaware in this room, and I'm pretty sure you guys are smart and aware, but I'll tell you anyway. The first 3 to 9 months of any infant's life are the absolute most crucial months for that infant to adapt, to connect, to attach, and to be well in any future. And if the first 3 to 9 months of an infant's life are absolutely filled with trauma, like ours were, the rest of that child's life might prove very difficult. So my brother dies. I bounce around from home to home to home, having a new mom and dad every couple of weeks or days. Nobody wants to keep Giovanni. Because every day I was in a foster home, I was violently ill. I was sick. It was too much for most foster parents to deal with. They would see that I had a bruise running from the top of my sternum to the bottom of my abdomen and a distended belly. It means a belly filled with water because there's no nourishment. Because of being malnourished. You see, Marcia and Martino only fed us what they could steal. Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk. Not the best diet. Not by a long shot. And so I was sick. And I would bounce around from home to home, and everyone would take me in, and they would put me back. Can't deal with it. One day I landed in the home of one Peter and Deborah Muller. Peter was in the Army. He was in the Army, and he and his wife, Deborah, were a transitional home for kids. They were a foster home that took a bunch of kids in at the same time and slowly pushed them out to be adopted. Well, Peter had to be restationed eventually. And so he had to go into, as you can imagine, the Army, one of the most god-awful places on the face of the planet he had to go. Ready? Hawaii. It's very tough. It's a desk job, really hard stuff. And Deborah was a housewife taking care of the kids inside that house. And one day, as people would come in and basically pick the kid they wanted to take home, one day, fate met with beauty. Because a woman named Deborah Joan Hines walked in their door. You know my last name is Hines, right? This worked out. And Deborah Hines walked into their door. She wasn't looking for a little boy to take home. She was looking for a little girl to take home and be the sister of Elizabeth, the girl she and Patrick Kevin Hines had already taken in. She walked into that home, and fully expecting to pick out one of the girls in the home, she saw me with my giant mop of red auburn hair and my red rubber ducky overalls. Guys, you've all had a pair, you just don't remember. Serious, there are pictures somewhere. And she saw me sitting on the carpeted floor before her in a cross-legged position, playing with one of those old 1980s horseshoe toys, the rings that are colorful, the white pole, and I was playing with that. And she said in the journal she made of those days, that was the moment she fell in love. She says that to people today when we meet them. It's great. And, she went home to Pat Hines. And she said, should we do this? He said, yes. He needs us. You see, Patrick and Deborah Hines, total opposites, okay? Patrick is by all accounts a pragmatic, pessimistic, and stone-faced man. If you don't know what that means, it means he's like void of all emotion, Just looks like, it looks like, do you guys know who Robert De Niro is? Some of you do? I'm so sad that some of you don't know who Robert De Niro is. He's a very famous actor. If you look him up online, and you look up a guy named Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was a late actor of this time, and you just had them together in a room, and then they had a baby, Pat Hines. Okay, seriously, that's what he looks like. It's just a face. Don't tell my dad. And Deborah Hines, as my father, is the pragmatic pessimist. Deborah Hines is the consummate optimist. When things go south, I would come home as a kid and I would lose a game, and she would say, "Oh well, no." And I would when things really went south, like really sideways, she would sing the song "Que Sera Sera," which in Spanish means "What will be, will be." And I'm like, "No, Mom, this day really sucked, and it's not cool that you don't think it was. What's going on?" And so Pat and Debbie Hines couldn't be more opposite, but they loved each other for some time before they got divorced after 25 years. In any event, and all they wanted to do, as they could have had natural-born children, was to give kids who had nothing everything. And they took in me, and they already had taken in Elizabeth, and we took in a little boy from another family. 3 kids, 3 separate families into one. Now, just to describe what we look like, just so you get a picture, Pat and Debbie Hines, each half Irish and half German, white. Elizabeth, European American, white. Me, very mixed, like I told you. And my brother, black. And when people saw us walking down the street in San Francisco in the 1980s and on forward, they were absolutely confused. They would look at us like we were a circus act of some kind. They'd be trying to figure out, how did that happen, Really, like they're just, you can see their eyes just going like a million miles, and they're like, no, well, maybe, and then over here, and he had this, and no. And so we'd go to a restaurant. And at one point, we went to this one restaurant in Kelseyville, California, and we're asking for a high chair for my little brother Joseph. And the hostess comes over. She's looking at us. She's bewildered. And she says to my mom, "Now I can understand where that came from," pointing at my sister Libby. And she goes, "And I can maybe understand where that came from," pointing at me like I had a tan or something. And then she looks at my little brother and she goes, "But where the hell did that come from?" Now, my mother is very quick. And pardon my French here, but she said in reply, "From the uterus where all babies come from." Which, if you don't know what that is, never mind. Where babies are, but never mind. I take it back. I should have said that joke. Terrible joke. And so we didn't eat there that night. We didn't eat there because they kicked us out. Anyway, people were confused. They made fun of us. They said bad things. They said racist things. We didn't care. We were a family in love. We were happy inside. We loved each other. We were thick as thieves. But you know what? That love in that family, the compassion that was felt all those years, it didn't stop all 3 of us kids seeing the inside of a psych ward more than once because of our brains that were partly in part due to our genetics and the fact that our birth parents all had what they call mental illness, and so did we. And it wasn't until 17 and a half, for me, who developed my mental illness first before my brother and sister. It wasn't until 17 and a half that this beautiful life, filled with such opportunity and such a future, completely fell apart. At 17 and a half, in the middle of a high school performance, I was in the theater department. In the middle of a high school performance, I was one of the leads on stage of a play that was being played out in front of an audience of 1,200 people. I had a complete mental breakdown. I got so paranoid. I thought people were following me out to get me and trying to kill me. People who I knew, people who I cared about, people in that play, and everybody in the audience was the enemy, and they were trying to hurt me. I had to leave that play in the middle of it. The teacher had to come on and play my role because he was the only guy who knew everyone's lines. And he had to play my role for the remainder of the shows in the next 2 weekends. And they would dedicate every show to me and my family because they didn't know what was going on with me. They just saw me lose it. 17 and a half. 18. My mom and I are going through some things. She kicks me out. I end up with my father. I'm living with my dad, and I am spiraling out of control on the inside. I'm seeing a psychiatrist. I'm taking medication. Well, not really. I was taking it one day and not the next, 7 days, not 7 days. Or I was taking the medication that this doctor was prescribing me for psychosis while drinking copious amounts of alcohol and binge drinking until blackout on the weekends, which could have killed me. I was not trying to get high. I was trying to numb the pain in my head, the suffering in between my ears. And do you think that when I became so paranoid outside in my life, that when my father got home at night, I would tell him about it? No. I kept it all inside because I didn't want anybody. I knew it was off, and I thought if I told them of the paranoid delusions or the hallucinations, both auditory and visual, that I was having caused by my brain, seeing and hearing things that no one else can see or hear, believing them to be real. If I told my father about that, I thought he would lock me up in a white-walled padded room and throw away the key. I turned 19. I'm now going through paranoid delusions, manic episodes where I think I can run for president, which I tried to do. It didn't work out. And I'm having these panic attacks left and right. They're causing me to have asthma attacks, and I've had asthma my entire life. I'm an absolute mess, but somehow I'm able to control it when my father would come home. Just silence it all and keep it all inside until and when, on September 25th of the year 2000, I couldn't hold it in anymore. It was overwhelming. But the night before, on the 24th, I wrote a note to my family and my friends and my girlfriend at the time. I told them I loved them. I told them the things they were doing wrong. I said I was sorry. On the 25th, when my father dropped me off at City College in San Francisco, I remember it vividly. My father turned to me in the car and he said, "Kevin, I love you. Be careful." He said it every day. He calls me to say it today. I looked at my father knowing that that day when he left, I was going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge and disappear forever. I got out of that car that day. I remember I stepped out of the car with my right foot. A tear rolled off my cheek and landed on my right lug's boot on the middle shoelace. My father drove away and I said, "That's the very last time I'll ever see anybody I love, and the very last time anybody I love will ever see me." And I was content. I made my way onto a bus. I sat in the very back row in the middle seat. And that's when it hit me. "Kevin, what are you doing? Kevin, this is a mistake. You don't have to die today. You're only 19. Call someone. Kevin, call anyone. Kevin, get off the bus and stop someone and ask them for help." But I was silenced by the voices in my head, the hallucinations screaming that I had to die that day and I had no choice. It was inevitable, they told me. And I sat there on that bus crying softly, moderately. Waterfalls then flowed from my eyes to the floor below me. There was a puddle, you guys, an actual puddle of my tears. Mucus was dripping from my nose. You know, with those kind of cries. And the only person, everybody saw me on that bus. Everybody could see I was in the most emotional and epic pain I'd ever experienced. And the only person to respond was a young man who turned to his left, pointed to me with his thumb, and with a smile on his face said, "What the hell's wrong with that kid?" My friends, there's a lesson to be learned here. If we are nothing else on this planet, we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. And when you see someone in the most emotional pain they've ever experienced, if you're capable, I'm asking you to look at that individual differently from today forward. You see someone in pain, walk up to that person, put your hand on their shoulder, and let them know you got their back. It doesn't matter if you know them. It doesn't matter if you like them. Because you could be the catalyst to changing someone's life forever in the most positive of ways. That day, I got to that bridge. I walked onto it. I paced back and forth for 40 minutes crying like a child. I stopped at a particular place, and yes, I attempted to take my life in one of the most dangerous ways known to man. One of the ways that only 1% of people who attempt that way survive. I'm of 1%. I'm of less than 1% of 4 people who have been blessed with regaining full mobility. I hit that water, you guys, in 4 seconds, and it shattered my back into a tiny different pieces. My vertebrae shattered, 3 of them. I missed severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. That's less than a centimeter. I made it to the surface, and I did what I could only do, what I only knew how to do at that moment. I'm not telling you to do it, I'm not pushing this on you. I prayed, God, please save me in the water, I don't want to die. God, please save me, I don't want to die. When I went over that rail, though, a woman had been driving by in a red car, and she saw me go over, and she called her best friend, a man who happened to be in the United States Coast Guard, manning the waters of that bridge at that very moment. That's why they got to me within 12 minutes before I'd set in hypothermia and drowned. In the water, I flailed to stay afloat, but I kept going down. And something very large, slimy, and alive began circling beneath me. And I thought to myself, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't die off 220 feet of a bridge, but a shark is going to eat me. Perfect. But it didn't bite. It just circled fast beneath me. Faster and faster, faster and faster, and no longer was I trying to stay afloat. I was lying on my back atop the water being bumped up by this thing. I thought to myself at that time, this is a very nice shark. I'm going to call him Herbert. His name is Herbert. I was on a television show sometime later to promote a suicide prevention campaign in my neighborhood. I said on the show, I thought there was a shark beneath me. When the show went online, people wrote in from all over the world, Italy, Ireland, Japan, China, the Bay Area, San Francisco, and one man stuck out above the rest. His name was Morgan. He said, Kevin, in his letter, he said, Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. No one until I saw this show would tell me if you lived or died. By the way, you mentioned there you thought there was a shark. There was no shark. But there was a sea lion. And the people above looking down believed it to be keeping you afloat to the Coast Guard boat right behind you. You can call it luck. You can call it what you want. I call it a miracle. The doctor performed my back surgery, a surgery that had not been performed on any human being before me. He invented it from my situation. It's in a medical journal. So my story, I share it with you just like Joe shares his with you, to let you know very clearly that today is not tomorrow. And just because you might be going through the greatest amount of pain in your life today, it does not mean that pain will live with you for the rest of your days. I have lived with this disease. I have fought it tooth and nail every day. I fight it every day until today. It doesn't go away. There's no cure, but I can manage it with things like Joe talked about: exercise, eating healthily, educating myself as to my diagnosis, accepting it as real, and fighting to stay alive with chronic suicidal thoughts. And I will never die by suicide. No matter how many times those thoughts creep into me, I will never die by suicide, because as I survived this fall, I got to see the devastating wake of destruction that I caused in my path. And I lived. Recently asked my father, the man who loves me the most in the world, if he still feared my death by suicide. He looked at me and he said, "Kevin, every time the phone rings," he didn't mean when I call him, when the phone goes off in his pocket, his first thought is my son alive. I've been given a second chance at life, and when you are given that, you do not take that second chance for granted. As a matter of fact, guys, you don't take anything for granted anymore. Not every person I get the privilege of looking into their eyes and meeting, not one place I get to go, and not one thing I get the distinct privilege of doing. None of us are promised tomorrow. We're not even promised the rest of today. So live your life like you want to be here, because you deserve to be, because you need to be, because you are cared for and loved, and because you matter. You guys, I'll end this speech with this quote, a quote that means the world to me, a quote that helps keep me here every day. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow, it's a mystery. Today is a gift. I think that's why they call it the present. I look to each and every one of you, and I say, let us always and forever cherish this day and every waking moment of this beautiful gift of life. Thank you very much. Joe, you want to come back up here, buddy? Do we have time for a few questions? Okay. Well, I mean, we have time, but does anybody have a question? Does anybody have any questions? That's the better question. Just, okay, guys, not all at once. It's too difficult, too hard.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Hi, yes.
You said you guys shared very many similar experiences. Are there experiences you share after your suicide attempts? Like, the experience maybe in the hospital with your family or something?
Yeah, I think a lot. Like, I don't know. They're big enough now. I think that the biggest similarity is that we've both been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and there's similar, like, we know when each other's having a bad day. So, like, Kevin and I were talking just before you guys got here, and he I said something. He goes, "You're all right. Is there all right? You having a hard time? What's going on? Let's talk about it." And it's those little things that we talk about all the time that brings up the consistencies of the troubles we're going through. The biggest one as well is that it only clicked for me last time I was out here. I do a month on, month off in America, Australia, and Kevin shares his wellness plan with big conferences and auditoriums full of people, as I do. And Kevin's been sharing this plan for how many years? 3 years. And I've been sharing my similar plan for 3 years. I've written it down for 3 years. I had been doing these things for as long as I can remember to keep me well. I just didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I was doing, but it wasn't really there.
These are routines that we utilize to stabilize our brain health.
And we've only known each other for 8 or 9 months. So here's these two separate wellness plans that Kevin created in the US, I created in Australia. Obviously two sides of wonderful, very, very different. But we come together, we've been working together for the last 9 months, and our wellness plans are all identical. But they're so similar with everything we do, which proves that what we're doing within our wellness plans is helping us stay well. It's helping other people, no matter where you're from in the world or what sort of background you're from. It's the stuff that we do works.
And these are common sense tips and tools that we utilize for ourselves, first not knowing that they were statistically proven to help people. Just things that doctors and teachers and confidants had said, maybe this could help you. And our plans are all but identical. I mean, except for like what, 2 or 3 things that are separate from each other. I mean, we're talking about, things like educating yourself as to your particular diagnosis or the thing you're going through. Exercising every day, 26 minutes a day, which leads to 12 hours of better mood. If you are physically capable of exercising or not exercising, here's an idea: exercise. Eating healthily most days. I will tell you that I have a problem. I love Taco Bell. If I wasn't married, Taco Bell. Just be there all day, every day. I haven't been there for 3 months. It's going good. And, so exercising, eating healthily, educating ourselves. Joe's got compassion and gratitude on his that are very important. I ended the presentation with how grateful I am to be here or to be anywhere. And so we have so many things that coincide. We're glad to send your teachers the wellness programs, and if your teachers think they can help you guys, hopefully you can get them. And they're for free. There's no charge. They're things that we know help us stay here and stay alive.
A lot of the things throughout the world, people like, especially a lot of the people who I treat and work with back home in Australia, they don't have a lot of money in their pocket to be able to go out and buy the best exercise equipment or do the greatest new things happen. So these are little tips that you or I can do, guys your age can do, that make you actually feel well. Like none of it costs money. Like it doesn't cost money to have gratitude or to be compassionate towards another person. Exercise doesn't cost money. You get up and you go for a walk, or you go for a run, or you work out. Like it's the little things that what I tell people that is what my old people do. As a First Nations man, we didn't have cars, we didn't have McDonald's, so we had to eat healthy, and we had to exercise. And it's those little things that we can all do. We can all make positive impact for each other.
And there's many more that we didn't discuss, but these are things that, common sense tips that you can take with you anywhere, and it can change the direction of your brain, literally. It can augment your state of mind and your ability to be well. And, we have to do them every day, because if we don't, we fall down a rabbit hole and we end up back in psych wards. That's legit. I mean, we have this disease in our brains. If we don't fight it tooth and nail all day, every day, we're going to have a hard time. Like Joe said, when he's unwell and I can see it, I say it. When I'm unwell and he sees it before me, he says it.
It's not a matter of popping a pill and everything gets well.
No. There's so much more to being well than, medication. Let me tell you something. We both take medication for our mental well-being. And it helps us because we've tried, true, and tested, taken a long time to get the right kinds that work for us. We don't mess around with that stuff. Not like I used to. I told you that I used to binge drink until blackout on the weekends and take my medications. Very, very dangerous, possibly lethal. I'm alive, and so now I take them with 100% accuracy, every day at the same time, and if I don't, it affects me. So all of these things, exercise, eating healthy, education, medication, meditation, mindfulness is a clear tool that you can utilize every single day. Breathing exercises. Do you guys know that most human beings don't breathe properly all day long, resulting in a lack of oxygen in your brain that results in your fatigue faster than you should. You can't function well in school or comprehend what you're learning. There are so many things that not breathing properly does to your body and your brain. Here's a tip that both Joe and I use. Ready? 4, 7, 8. Who knows what that is? There we go. 4, 7, 8. Okay, here we go. All right? Do me a favor. Do this with me, please. Bear with me, okay? It works. Inhale through your nose. If you don't have a deviated septum like I do, inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Ready? Hold for 7. Release through your mouth for 8. What does that do if you do it 20 times in a row? It reduces your blood pressure. It lowers your blood sugar. It lowers your heart rate. People who have panic attacks can break free from them by doing this in sets of 20 until they calm down. People going through psychosis can reduce the amount of psychosis they're having. Like when I have hallucinations, this is what I do until it passes. This is something that anyone can do. You all breathe. You all breathe, right? Just to be clear, none of you are aliens or robots.
Can I ask a question?
All right.
Who paid attention when Kevin said about breathing? Did everyone start going? Start to pay attention?
Oh,
If they
no.
were breathing properly or not?
Who's paying attention? Raise your hand if you're paying attention. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All the rest of you, breathe. Properly. For your brains. All right. Yes.
So, like, when you went through that whole battle thing with, like, when you committed suicide, did you feel like relieved in the end?
Relieved to be alive?
Yeah.
I was very glad to be alive from the moment they picked me up from the Coast Guard boat. You know, it was night and day. One of the things that we learned of there's over 2,000 people that have died off the Golden Gate Bridge. There are 36 who have survived. There are 4 who have regained full mobility. There are 19 of the 36 who have survived, many of which have died of natural causes in their old age. It's been 80 years that it's been a 4-foot rail. Many who have died of natural causes. 19 of the remaining 20 some odd people that survived that fall have all come forward to say at the moment of free fall, just like I did, they had an instant regret. What occurs is you are shocked into reality from your psychosis or your brain pain. That's technical. People have studied this. You are shocked into reality, and you recognize that you've just made the greatest mistake of your life, and yet you clearly, as you fall, you think it's too late. You never think anybody's ever survived this thing. No one's ever heard of it. And I felt so glad to be alive. I got sick in the hospital, got pneumonia, nearly died. You know, it was a bad scene. 10-hour surgery to replace my back with metal. I'm lucky to be able to stand or walk, right? I love this second chance at life. And no matter the fact that I have these thoughts of suicide on a regular basis, like I said, they will never kill me. And they won't kill me because I have built a support network of people who care about me, who've got my back. Build your network, keep it strong, and take care of yourself and one another.
For me, when I woke up, I didn't know whether I was lucky. I didn't know that I was thankful that it did work, or angry that it did work. But one clear thing that I did know is that I'm lucky to be alive. So that was my moment of clarity, I call it, where I said to myself, as I mentioned in my speech, it's my second chance. I do everything I possibly can now to make sure that I'm one.
And always remember this, you guys are all still here. You're way more resilient than you even have any idea. You're still here, you can still and stay and move forward here. And take care of one another and yourself. You guys, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Your bus is here. We don't want to make the bus leave without you. That would be bad. But thank you very much. We're going to be here for a minute. If anyone has a moment to come say hi, we're glad you're here. And we're thankful that you came today and heard our words. Thank you very much.